Hey everybody, it's Matt from House of Vacuums, and today we have a special treat. We don't see these as often as we used to, but I have in the shop a Riccar 8850, which was the first Riccar of the 8000 series and is still one of my favorite vacuum designs of all time. These things are just brutes. They're indelicate, they are tough, they are reliable, like they're just beasts of vacuums, and they are some of my favorite vacuums to have sold in the past and to have worked on. But back in the day when I started in the industry, like around 1998-ish, man, I would sell 8850s just all day, every day. I think the price point on them was right around 500, 550 bucks at the time. So, you know, back in 98, that was a lot of money, but I sold, like, hands down, compared to everything else, I would sell, you know, at least an 8850 a day, if not, you know, 2 or 3. So I sold a lot of these. I've worked on a lot of them, you know, just maintaining them, and they're great machines. I've never owned an 8850. I did own its successor, which was the 8955, which just had some minor updates and a new color scheme, but it was basically the same machine. And I sold it stupidly, and I wish that I had kept it, but what are you going to do? In any case, so the story on this guy is that they want, this customer wants it serviced, and let's see what else. Service, belt, filter, new brushes. So the belt obviously is going to come with the service, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to lay this guy down here, and which direction do I want to work on him? This is probably going to be easier. Man, I just am used to working on him this way. It's so funny how, like, my orientation of my workbench when I first started in the industry, like, I can't deviate from that. Like, I have to have the handle pointing left. So otherwise it just completely throws me off. So I want to take a listen to this motor and see how it sounds. We're just going to bump it real quick. It sounds great. Longer wind down, I mean, but it's not a gritty wind down. It's just, you know, the bearings have loosened with time. So, you know, that's fine. That's a-okay. Now let's take a peek inside here. Does have some dust buildup and accumulation. That's to be expected. These units, when they came from the factory, came with a paper bag. With the 8955, they upgraded it to a cloth bag, and the cloth bag and paper bag were interchangeable. You could use them on either model, the old, you know, the 8850 or the 8955, but typically people stick with what they have always used. So most people who have an 8850 stick with the paper. Most people with an 8955 use the cloth. It's just habit, I guess. That's the reason why we see dust in here, is because the paper just was never as effective as the polypropylene cloth at removing dust from the air. This is your final filter. These were 3M Filtrete filters, not sealed, obviously. They just kind of sit in there and kind of catch what they can, but there's no seal. So, you know, this does have some bypass. The predecessor, the 8955, did have a gasketed filter fit in here. That was one of the improvements that they made, and that had less bleed through, even though this is not a truly sealed system, as is the case with most bypass uprights, with the exception of Sibo, Miele, Lindhaus, you know, really high-end European brands. Technically, Dyson and Shark are sealed systems. I do not consider them a sealed system, though, because you end up having to deal with the dust again when you dump the cup. So, you know, to me, that makes it yeah, when you're using it, you're not blowing a bunch of dust back out into the air. But as Dysons get older, they do leak dust, and as, and yeah, all that jazz. So they said they wanted new brushes. We're going to check the length of these. These don't look too bad, actually. We'll check the length compared to new ones. Let's get an age on this guy. This was made the second quarter of not 2009, that would have, of 1999. So the second quarter of 1999. So that would make this, you know, just over 20 years old. And you can see the condition it's in, still running great. Looks like the last time that it was serviced was in 2005. This is what you get when you buy a high quality vacuum. Again, these were not like shoot the moon expensive like a Kirby or something back in the day. These were not cheap, but they were reasonably priced. You know, the average person could afford to get into one of these. And you can see for the money what you got. You know, this person has you know, gotten their money back on this machine over and over again, simply by the merit of how it's built. So to get into this, just 2 flathead screws. If you have an 8955, these will be Phillips. This has the old style plastic wheel, and these have been taken care of because there's not a whole lot of slop here, and the axle is not moving at all in the housing. This has been a really well taken care of machine. One of the improvements that the 8955 made was they had rubber wheels with brass bushings both here and here. These were just plastic wheels with plastic on metal. So this tilts up. Now you've got your base plate. This is a piece of stamped steel. Then you've got a metal separator between the brush roll and the belt chamber. These units only have cleaning on one side, which is this side, but I'll show you a design feature that you know, makes these clean pretty well across the range. And these actually beat, did these beat the wind tunnel to market? It was around the same time. They're definitely peers. But this essentially has what they called a turbo chamber, which is, for all intents and purposes, a wind tunnel. So I'll show you that here in a second. This little flappy flap comes off. This is a common part to break or go missing. So this one is here. It's in perfect shape. This foot pedal is also tends to wear, and this is in perfect shape as well. This is a really well taken care of machine. So this just pulls out of the side. I just clip them there to the side to keep them out of the way. And then your brush roll just pulls straight up and out. So if you've watched my my Riccar, I think it was a Riccar R300 or R800 that I did a video on where I rebuilt the brush roll. This is pretty much the exact same brush roll. Fork on the bottom that faces down when you put it into the housing. You've got a chrome steel core, replaceable brush strips. You've got metal end cap. You've got a rubber insulator on this side, and then the fork keeps it in place on this side. You've got your clutch assembly, which is this right here. So this is clutch off, or I'm sorry, brush roll off. So this is just spinning free and the brush roll is not turning. And then if you engage the brush roll right here, then now your brush roll is turning with the belt. There is some slipping here, but it doesn't feel too bad. I think we should be able to adjust that slippage out of this. There's a little bit of grit from this side. Not bad though. I mean, again, you're talking about a vacuum that's pushing 25 years old. You know, and that bearing feels just a hair gritty, but I mean, like I run into 3-year-old vacuums that have brush rolls that feel worse than that. So Now, one thing that Riccars are known for, and if you have one, this is really important for you to do. They stretch belts really fast. It has a really aggressive brush roll, and it has like an automatic rake to the carpet. So there's a lot of pressure on this belt, and these get hot and they stretch really quickly. When I had an 8955, I changed these every 6 months like clockwork. If you don't, once you hit like 9 months-ish, you're going to notice a big decrease in performance, and it's going to be because this starts slipping. You can even see here, if we get underneath here, you can see how glossy it is. It has been slipping. It's not in bad shape. It's not terrible, but you know, you want to change these every 6 months. They're cheap, and it's well worth it to keep it cleaning at 110%. This felt packing goes right here. I'm going to hang on to that, otherwise it's going to get lost. Your hose pulls out the side right here, so we're just going to let that hang because we're going to go ahead and take out this guy. I swear, you know, like how military guys, you know, are supposed to be able to field strip their weapons while they are, you know, blindfolded. I feel like that with this vacuum. I know these so well. It's just like coming home. So this is your headlight. I don't remember seeing whether or not the headlight turned on. We'll have to check that. So this just pulls out right here. And yeah, it looks like it has a broken filament, so we might have to replace that. So I'm just going to let that hang right here. And then there's a screw right here, 2 down inside. And what happens now is we can take this piece off. So this pulls down, and then this just pulls to the side. Now, from the factory, this is pretty much captive. You have to keep the body and the hood together because this is not going to fit through. I do want to point out, though, the pivot point. So this is kind of special. This was the first vacuum, and I think really, other than Riccar, there's never been a company that's done this. Riccar does it on their Tandem Air series as well, but it has replaceable pivot points. On this side, it is plastic, inside a plastic housing that I'll show you. So what ends up happening on some clean air machines is you've got a lot of tension on the hinges, which I was just showing you between, I call it a pivot point, which is where the nozzle of the machine pivots with the handle, right? So you've got this hinge action. With time and age, those wear away. Now, in a lot of machines like Panasonic's, Sharps, they were notorious for this. Those pivot points can start to age, they wear away, they start to crack, and what that does is it means there's slop in between the body and the nozzle, and what that does is it causes the belt to start to ride off because the motor post is not completely parallel with the brush roll. So if that's not happening, then your belt is going to ride to one side or the other. This is just how far Riccar went with this machine, that they put in on the non-belt side, they put a replaceable plastic pivot point, and I'll show you the pivot point here on the belt side. So this is a steel zinc coated, like electroplated pivot. And then you've got a cast metal pivot right here, which fits on the motor side, which is also replaceable. So you've got a replaceable plastic sleeve, costs you literally like $1 to replace. Then you got this side. These sides don't really wear out that often, and if they ever happen to, it's really, you know, easy to change out. It's just Such a great design. I really, really love these things. All right, so let's flip this over. We're gonna go ahead and break into the motor compartment real quick. So there's 4 screws, one right here, 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 and here. Got a sponge, like this is more of a insulator than a filter really. Then you've got foam around the motor as well. This helps deal with noise. And just a huge motor. So this is a 12 amp motor and it's running a 2-stage motor. So what that means is there's 2 fans. There's a fan right here and a fan right here. So this is really a dying design, not a whole lot of vacuum manufacturers. I'm trying to think if there are any that make an upright with a 2-stage motor. The only one that I can think of is Sebo. Sebo's X and G series uprights still use a 2-stage motor in their uprights, but it is a slightly smaller diameter than this. This is just a beast of a motor. Lots of suction, lots of airflow. This cleaned out of all of the clean air machines that came out of the 90s and the 2000s. This was one of the best cleaning that you could get because this motor is just so massive and it has a very efficient air pathway, which I'll show you later in the video. But those two coupled together mean that this thing just cleans carpet like the dickens, and really wasn't surpassed until Tacony came out with the Tandem Air series. But the Tandem Air series had some trade-offs because they're more complex than this, so they tend to take a little bit more maintenance. We've got our, again, our pivot point right here, right? So that's all replaceable if necessary. Let's see how that, and that is really not bad. I would venture to say that does not need replaced. Motor is held in with 2 screws right here and here. Yeah, Amatec motor, manufactured August of 1999. So cool. And it's made in the US. You don't see that very often anymore. So, manufactured by Lamb Electronic Division, Kent, Ohio. These were really good motors. August 1st, 1999. Very, very cool. Now, this is an old motor. You can see the carbon here. That just comes with age. I'm going to pull this out, and what we're going to do is we're just going to, this foam is probably pretty fragile, so we're going to be a little bit careful with it. What I do want to do though is, because this machine is a little bit on the older side and there is some carbon dusting, I want to make sure that the brushes are not too far gone. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull one of these guys. All right, so that is plenty of, this vacuum is in incredible shape. This brush is great in terms of length, in terms of the edges, super clean. Like the commutator looks fantastic. This guy is in great shape. And if I'm not going to pull the other brush as long as I don't see any warning signs of burning, because they should wear evenly as long as one of them's not arcing, and there's no, obviously at this point, no indication of that. I mean, I'm almost tempted to just tell this person, like, go pick a vacuum off of the floor. I want this one. Like, that's how nice this one is. I will just keep this one. This will be mine. So let's take a look at the motor now. Zoom in just a little bit. You can see right here. Where's my flashlight? So there is no sign of arcing. There's no sign of abnormal heat. The wear on this is super even. There's no discoloration, no burning. This is in great shape. So we have a motor that is going to continue to run for conceivably years in this current condition that it's in. So very cool. Now over here on this side, you've got right here a thermal reset switch. So basically what this does is this monitors the power going across the motor. And when a motor gets hot or starts to strain, what it'll do is it will start to peak the amperage on the motor. And what this does is if it peaks the amperage, this will shut it off. They call it a thermal switch, but it's not a thermal switch. It's really like an electrical breaker. So that when the spike comes, this will turn off and protect the motor from like damaging itself and overheating. This is really cool because this is a manual reset switch. If you flip this over right here, there's the button right here. That's a manual reset. Now, what's the advantage of having a manual reset? Most vacuums have this kind of safety switch built into them. Really, all vacuums do, all modern vacuums. However, most of these were integrated into the motor windings on newer machines, and they're, number one, not replaceable, and number two, if you ever trip this, if you do it on one that is, that on a newer machine that does an automatic reset, basically it'll reset when the vacuum cools down. Each time it overheats and trips and then resets, it essentially resets at a lower temperature. So it'll reset here, then reset here, then reset here, and eventually just normal operation is going to be too hot for it. So at that point you need to replace it, and not all of them are replaceable, specifically the ones that are integrated into the motor windings. So this is just, again, that extra step that they took in designing this machine that made it so resilient. Is it a super technical, elegant solution? No, but it works great. And it's replaceable. If these ever go bad, you just swap a new one in. It's a few bucks. Like, again, just so easy to maintain. Love it. You're going to hear me singing a lot of praises. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. All right. So the motor compartment, other than a little bit of carbon dusting, looks great. There's no signs of water, no signs of like excessive dust. We're good to just kind of give this a quick dust up and throw this back together. And I want you to look at how thick this plastic is. This stuff is incredibly thick and incredibly hard to flex. I mean, these things are just overbuilt. I was considering just really like going whole hog and like taking this all apart and washing it and all that. I'm still going to wash it, but I'm going to do it in place because here's the reason. This is such a nice vacuum that I do not want to get in there and mess around with it too much. For me to do this, I would have to cut these leads. These are the factory crimps. And this is too nice of an example to go in and start messing with. Is this maybe me being a little bit too much of a vacuum collector? Probably. But this is just really, really nice and original, and I don't want to mess with that. So we will give it a really good cleaning, but we will do it in place. And you might wonder why I'm doing this by hand as well. I'm going complete vacuum collector geek. This is just a really nice example, and I want to treat it with kid gloves. So I'm putting the screws back in by hand because I feel like the electric screwdriver is just a little bit too harsh for this. This deserves better. What we're going to do with this is we are going to give this a damp rag, and then we are going to do a little bit of detailing. I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. Let me get a damp rag real quick. Can't tell you how many times I've done this. But to get a perfect finish on this bag chamber and make it look like new, all you need is just a very light spray of furniture polish and a 50-cent chip brush. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just work this into all of the nooks and crannies. I really, as a vacuum tech, kind of have a general philosophy, and I'm probably overdoing it on this particular machine because I'm just so in awe of it, but my general philosophy, and you guys have probably seen this if you've been watching my videos for too long, I don't do stuff that I don't need to do. Like get rid of the factory motor connectors in there. If there's a way around it, if I can do this instead and it will work and look just as good, I'm not going to mess with a good thing. Sometimes it is better to know when to step back than just always go whole hog. These take my general philosophy is has a little bit more finesse. So now what we do is we'll take this and we'll just buff all the areas that we can reach. put this side in first. We gotta kind of feed this headlight lead through. There we go. Now, pop him into place, and look at that. It just falls right where he needs to. Push that down, and now we've got 3 screws to replace there. All right, this guy was burned out, so let me grab another one. So one thing that is important on machines that use like the old filament light bulbs, the incandescents, is to match the wattage. This is what came out of it was a 15 watt bulb, and what I'm putting into it's 15 watts. I do carry 25s, but I'm not going to use a 25 in this. Why? Because this is a very tight space. When you use a 25 on this, what it'll actually do is you'll start to see that this will start to melt and this will start to melt, and it'll get wavy and weird and stuff, and then things won't fit together right. So just a word to the wise, if you are replacing a light bulb on a machine, that wattage of the bulb coming out, the factory bulb, there's a reason why they chose that wattage, typically, or at least for quality manufacturers, they put the time and thought into that. So if you've watched my Vibrance Brushroll video, you'll know that this is a little bit delicate. This is one of, if you could point out a weak point on these machines, this would probably be it, the clutch system. So you don't want this plate that holds the clutch system in place to get loose. Oh, can you even see that? There you go. So this metal plate, you do not want that to get loose. You also don't want to over tighten it, because you can actually just strip out because these are small screws into a small piece of plastic, and you don't want to strip that out. So I'm just going to make sure that they're snug. That one's good. Oh, that one was a little loose, about 1 turn on him. And then the third one, maybe 1/8 of a turn. And now we are in good shape. The retainer right here, this is not, sometimes they'll be bent this way, and then you have to bend them back. This one is exactly where it's supposed to be, so that it provides spring action against your clutch linkage. And this clutch linkage has not been flattened. It's not been pulled too hard and bent out. Looks perfect. So that looks really good. Now, I told you I was going to tell you about the turbo chamber. I think that's what they called it. But basically, the brush roll sits in a cylinder. So everything here is rounded. So this essentially, what it will do is create kind of like, it's tapered, and it will create like essentially a wind tunnel down here to your inlet, which is why this thing cleans so well. Machines that have squared off brush roll chambers tend to clean really heavily on the inlet side and then get really weak over here. This will still favor the inlet side, but a little less so. And then the other nice thing about this design is this was not molded into the nozzle housing itself. Why is that important? Well, part of the reason why that's important is because if anything ever happens to your brush roll, if you catch the edge of a broomstick and it yanks it back into the housing and you know, breaks off a little piece, if it ever melts, if it ever, you know, whatever the case is, you're replacing this, not all of this, right? So again, it's just so repairable. Everything on this machine, everything, like I'm not exaggerating, everything on this is designed to be repairable, which is fantastic. We're kind of at the point now we're going to want to compare these brushes to new ones. Now, there's still about 2 millimeters of difference. So since they wanted them replaced, we will replace them. So we'll probably fast forward through this. If you want to see me go through one of these brush rolls, pretty much top to bottom, then check out the video for my Riccar Vibrance brush roll rebuild. That takes you through it step by step in detail, but I will fast forward through this. But if you want to see that, check up here. I'm going to link right there to the Vibrance video. That will take you through how to strip this down, change the brushes, and put it back together and adjust the clutch. Got the brush roll back together. It is beautiful, working like a champ. The bottom plate, there's 2 hooks right here. This lip goes over. All right, and it will just hinge down and into place. This is one of those videos that I really enjoy doing. It's probably not, you know, here's the thing about running a YouTube channel. Some videos are going to get a ton of views, and some are just going to be really interesting for your core audience, and this is a core audience video. So I highly recommend, for any of you guys who are out there just geeking out on this right now, if you can find a clean 8850, what are the other ones? 8850, 80, was it 8700? 8955, 8900, 8905. Any of those 8000 series machines, so worth it. And here's the thing, you may not find one that's as clean as this, but go down to your local Riccar dealer and order all the parts. All the parts are still available. They are relatively inexpensive compared to what we're used to paying for, like, you know, gosh, some German parts, what we're used to paying for, gosh, Dyson parts. These are super affordable compared to that. We're going to go ahead and plug, well, actually, we'll leave this off. While we've got this flipped over like this, I'm going to go ahead and detail the back side. One thing that you want to check on these is that these compression cuffs for the telescoping wand like to crack. Also, there's tracks that each one of them rides in, and they can fall out. This one's a little... yeah. This one's a little worn. There we go. Now he's in his track. So these are a little bit, when they get older, can be a little bit finicky, but when they were new, they were fine. Another thing to check is you want to check all the clips. So again, designed to be serviced. On other vacuums, these pieces that retain the tools are molded into the body so that when these wear away, you're just out of luck. Your tools are falling all over the place because you're not going to replace the entire body to get your tool to stay in place. Riccar went to the trouble of making each one of these retainers replaceable. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Again, a lot of what you see here is not going to be as elegant as something you might see from a similar vintage from, say, Cibo or Miele. Those are sports cars. Well, let's say the Miele is a sports car. The Cibo, it's like a good, reliable sport utility vehicle. But these guys, at the time, these were the pickup truck. This is what you got to get a hard job done. Not saying the others couldn't do a hard job, but like these were designed to be used heavily and be repaired. And were some of their solutions as elegant as the Germans? Certainly not. Were they super reliable and cheap to replace broken pieces? Yes. Super cheap, whereas the German stuff's expensive. All of the tools are in place on this unit. Nothing is missing. It is complete. Unfreaking-believable, people. All right. We're going to plug this in here. That's your tool hose. You've got a clean out port. This is where you also can plug in an extension tools if you want to. There's a bleed valve right here for, again, it's not as elegant as, say, a speed control, electronic speed control, but the bleed valve gets the job done. So, all right, give this a quick clean off. So, this piece is important. You want to make sure if you have an older one of these guys that this is in place, because what it does is when the bag gets heavy and full of dirt, it will lay on this. And what that allows it to do is to get air still into the motor. It's not going to actually just physically cover up the motor intake and start to starve the vacuum of air. So it's a way to keep it cleaning better for longer. And also keeping the motor from overheating and having that thermal switch pop. So also, if you run a polypropylene bag in this, like this one here, you'll never have this dust buildup issue again. You really have to abuse a bag to get one of those to bleed through. It's totally possible. You can do it, but... All right. So... one other thing that I want to check real quick is the handle to body connection. So if people picked it up by the handle up here instead of by the carry handle back here, what would end up happening is this connection would loosen with time and it could cause issues. And I'll see if there's any play, and there is not. This is in perfect shape. So again, why does it keep surprising me? It's just... this is an amazing machine. It's practically perfect in every way. All right, we are... Now again, with a lesser or a newer machine, I might go crazy with some of my adhesive remover to get rid of some of these paint marks, but again, this is older plastic. I don't know how it would hold up to that or if it would discolor. So I'm just going to get rid of some of the easier to remove marks with some degreaser. I'm going to run this. I just want you guys to listen to how this thing is going to just purr like a kitten. Help if I had the switch in floor. There we go. All right. Click him up into place. Do you see that head wobble? That is how well this thing grooms. It just beats the carpet. Those brushes are so aggressive. I love it. All right. Well, this was an absolute pleasure. I saw this one come through and I hoped that my dad wouldn't take it because I wanted it and I got lucky. So, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Again, if you find an 89 or an 8850, 8955, 8900, 8905, any of the 8000 series, these things are absolutely fantastic. I do typically, Riccar and Simplicity at the time were sister brands, and Simplicity had the 7000 series. Between the two, there are some significant design differences in terms of the way that the heads work and where the wheels are located, etc. I greatly, greatly prefer the Riccar design to the Simplicity. I think that it's just a better design. So in any case, if you can get a hold of one of these, it's great. I appreciate you coming along on this. Hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I will see you in the next video. Bye.